And I'm taking a different route home that's pretty much completely out of the way, but it's new, so it'll be different. And it's not new for me, but it's new for you, so it'll be a nice little change of pace. Anyway, in my previous CarFest video from 2016, I alluded to a follow-up video right towards the end, if you actually stuck around to watch that part, going over some of my deficiencies last year on the track. And I think an important piece of advice that my instructor, I believe his name was Mike, gave me was when you come out to these HPDE, again, that's high performance driver's education events, pick one thing that you want to work on and just focus on that, dial it in, get it proper, because you know who's going to come to just one. And if you try to tackle everything that you want to improve about your driving in one go, like you're just going to fall on your face. You might improve in some areas, but like, is it really going to be hard coded into your brain for next time? That's debatable. It depends on your style of learning. But I do see the insight in that, so I'm going to pick one thing to focus on this year, 2017. I have 5 run groups, or 5 hot laps to do so, if none of them get canceled due to whatever, my car blowing up, somebody else's car blowing up, I don't know. But anyway, one of my biggest things that I would like to improve upon is heel and toe braking and downshifting. This is kind of a 2-part thing, because one, that is just something I'm not too good at. I don't really do it that much on the street, so have not had as much practice as I could use. But 2, it directly affects my ability to come into a corner, if I understand it correctly. I mean, basically, for those who don't know, heel and toe braking is when you're using your right foot to apply the brake and blip the throttle to initiate a downshift. So you're working all 3 pedals with both feet, and I won't go into too much more detail than that because there are tons and tons of videos online on how to do that and what it is. I think Engineering Explained has a really good one, so check that out. So anyway, that's something I want to improve upon because I was having so many issues last year with the carousel. Oh, damn it. And the keyhole. Now those are 2 rather tight corners. They're linked corners actually. And I said them in reverse order. If you're going on the track in normal rotation, you hit the keyhole, and then at the very end you hit the carousel right before you come onto the front straight area. And maybe out of all the laps I did, and I'd have to say I did at least average of 5 to 7 laps per run, 5 runs, something to the tune of 25 to 35 laps, if I had to guess. And maybe nailed, oh, god damn! Squeaky brakes. But anyway, I maybe nailed those corners 1 to 3 times each, and I don't think any of those times were on consecutive laps. So like, that is to say I didn't hit the keyhole and the carousel correctly in the same lap, which sucks, and it's just, it shows off my deficiencies as a driver. But hey, that's the whole reason I'm out there. If I was like super turbo the best at race driving, then I would just, I don't know, be doing it all the time. Or, I don't know, you get what I'm saying. I have some areas to improve upon, and I'm happy to admit that and do so. So I'm going to be focusing this year on improving my heel and toe downshifts and corner entry speed. Because it's astonishing how much time you can gain by hitting a corner just right. I mean, I believe I understand the preferred racing line, or at least the line I was taught for Mid-Ohio. So I'm prepared in that area, but you know, I haven't practiced this since last year. It's not like I could just go to that track anytime. I could go more often, but that's something we'll get to in the future. At any rate, that's where I want to improve. Some other deficiencies that are kind of hanging out there. I mean, like I said, I'm going to focus on one thing at a time, so that's what I'm doing this year. But or at least this HPDE event. But areas that I could use some improvement in are, let's see, talking my way through the course. I know not everyone does this, and I certainly don't think all the professional racers do this, but it's quite a useful tool to talk to yourself while you're driving. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now, but about what you're doing in the like on the course. You know, like coming into this corner, okay, I'm braking, heading towards these candy canes, okay, start unwinding. Like, just talk through what you're doing. Damn it. Because I think it helps. I can't explain the science behind it. I just sound like an idiot right now. But I think talking through something like that helps you kind of process it without having to think too much about it. And there's plenty enough to think about while you're on the track. That was actually one of the things that I think was interesting about this whole road course driving experience. Is you don't really look at your speed all that much. If you see some videos of people on the track, a lot of people put tape over their speedometers because it's not important how fast you're going. It's important. Well, it depends what you're doing, but for the most cases, it's important to get your lap times down. And speed indication has very little to do with that, as far as I understand. Feel free to flame me in the comments if I'm off base on that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not planning on it. But it was one of the other things I learned last time that I found interesting. Was my instructor told me, he's like, okay, you know, you don't really have time to look at your gauge cluster. That's like the last thing you do. So when you get to an area where you have a break, so for example, a long straight, like the kink, as it's called. I've been calling it the back straight. It's actually called the kink. You know, look around. In this case, not a race, but make sure there's no one around you, like trying to pass you, or that you're trying to pass somebody. And check your corner workers. Make sure that because there is a corner worker like right in the middle of the kink. Make sure they're not trying to communicate anything to you. And once you're satisfied that you can take your eyes off the road for a second, because that's the big thing that you don't want to do, then, you know, glance down to your gauge clusters. It's like the last safety check, as it were. So what are my other deficiencies? What else did I do wrong? So one of the things that I found interesting, sin is killing America. You don't say. I drive a rotary, and it's fun. It's very fun, actually, to just rev the piss out of them. It's good for the car, too, so they say. You want to get into some high revs and really burn off carbon buildup inside your rotor housings, and I suppose a little bit on the rotors. So it's good to stroke it out every now and again. I mean, hey, that's just generally good advice to live by. Sometimes you just got to stroke it out. But I was doing that on the track, you know, getting into like 7, 8, 9K for reasonably extended periods of time. And when I say that, I mean like a couple seconds. So like really stroking out the gear. And my instructor, Mike, he also is a rotary guy. He was driving a RX-7, the first generation. I think that would be a body. I don't think that's the correct terminology. Mazda fanboys are rolling over in their grave. But anyway, he's like, hey, you should shift a little bit sooner because you don't need to put that much stress on your engine in this kind of event. Because in road course driving, I mean, this ties into the top speed run thing that I've mentioned previously, and I may bring up again. But it is such an entirely different type of stress on your car. I mean, you know, people have been out driving in heavy traffic or pulling trailers or, you know, driving fast on public roads and stuff. That's all well and good, and it's fun. And it does stress the car, to be sure. But, like, I wasn't prepared for just how intense road course driving is. You know, like, have you ever taken a turn a little fast? I mean, okay, everyone who is into drifting, just ignore this comment because you're just going to laugh. But if you've ever taken a turn a little bit fast in your car, you know, coming home from work or whatever, and you squeal the tires a little bit, and you're like, oh shit, like, didn't mean to get so bucked. But I mean, like, consistently, every corner. I mean, like, here. Here.
Going forward for that corner.
Here. 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 Yeah, I'm just, like, lighting them up. And that wasn't intentional. And technically, the tires I was using weren't really that good for what I was doing with it. But I was amazed to be able to push the car that hard and not have any control issues. You know, I've heard so many things about approaching the limit or pushing your car to the limit. It's astonishing how deep that rabbit hole really goes. I, you know, many times got a little crazy on the street and was like, okay, calm down, buddy. You know, you need to rein it in a little bit. And I was nowhere near even close. I think even at the track, I did not come close to the limit this time. That's another thing that I plan on improving. I had my driving aids on the entire time. So for those of you who don't know much about the RX-8, there are two forms of traction control, basically. There's DSC, which is dynamic stability control. And then there's, I know there's a name for this, but I don't know what it is. There's the squiggly lines right in the center of the dash. That's the no fucks given, all driving aids off mode. Now, I did not engage in either of those. I may have turned DSC off at one point, I don't remember. But I kept them on because I was new to this, and it was intimidating to say the least. Like, that was one of my biggest takeaways, was just how, like, holy shit it was to be on the track like that. And especially with a lot of other guys around me that were much faster, because, you know, obviously it's not a race. If somebody's faster than you, you point them by and you let them go, and that's fine. But I don't know where I was going with this. Yeah, so it was just nerve-wracking. So, like, the last thing I wanted to do, last thing on my mind was like, okay, I'm going to turn traction control off and see if I can not spin out. Because we did see a couple people do that. Specifically, there was a minivan out there that did that. It was kind of funny. But I want to experiment with that a little bit. I won't do it at the beginning of the day. I'm going to start out just the way I did it last time and work my way into that, because I want to see what the car can do and push that limit. I'm not trying to hit it, but you know, I want to learn more about the car and learn more about myself. And that's kind of the whole point of this whole driver education thing. So let's recap here, because this is totally rambling. I've probably been talking for easily 15 minutes, and nobody wants to watch a 15-minute video full of nothing. So as soon as I get through this intersection, I'm going to recap right now. I'll do a little trial run for myself. But anyway, so in summary, the intimidation factor is real for HPDE events, but don't let that discourage you. It's so much fun, and it is such an educational, awesome experience. I would absolutely recommend it. And depending on what organization you're doing it through, for example, in Ohio we have Auto Interests is one of them. And they do this really cool thing called the acclimation program. So if you've never ridden on a track before, you get to go with an instructor in your car, and they will kind of walk you through it and explain it to you. So that's a super cool program. I loved it, and it was very, very affordable. It was actually a little more than half of what I paid now that I'm an official novice driver. So, and I got the same amount of track time, but with an instructor. So it was super fun, super cool, and I would definitely encourage people to do it. Next is, if you're going out to an event like that, don't try to improve all of the things that you want to fix about your road course driving in one event. Branch it out. So, like, pick one thing that you really want to focus on and just focus on that, dial that in, burn it into your memory. That way, next time you can pick something else and work on it, and you won't have that same issue that you were working on last time. So for my situation, what I'm planning to do is improve my heel and toe downshifting and corner entry, because that was one area that I could definitely gain some or improve upon. There's kind of two different things, but they're kind of linked, and I kind of was working on that towards the end of my track time last year. So I want to finish that up and just really, really dial that in. Also, these track events are super, super hard on your car. It's kind of amazing the stresses involved. So just take that into consideration. Like I was saying earlier, you know, I drive a rotary. I like to rev the piss out of it, but do that with a grain of salt. Definitely, you know, give your car some time to breathe, and don't just run into the ground, because you could very easily do some damage just from how hard you're running it. And lastly, I guess just have fun. I really wish more people could experience this. I think it's really cool that the drift scene is burgeoning, I guess we'll go with. I think that would be an appropriate use of the word here. But I don't see a lot of focus on this kind of stuff. There's definitely people out there doing it, tons and tons of people, but no one's really talking about it, and it's such an amazing experience. So get out there, try it, see if you like it, and improve your driving overall, because I think a lot of these things they translate to the street, just are less important. Most corners you're coming into are not going to be that hot. But anyway, get out there, have fun, and look forward to. I'm gonna, as you saw, I used some of the footage from my track experience to point out my deficiencies here. I think I'm going to take some of those other laps and just drop them into a timeline as, like, you know, laps at Mid-Ohio, just for people who are interested in seeing the line that I was taking and how my car and I were performing. If you're into that sort of thing, check it out. And yeah, I don't know, try it yourself. Get out there. It's a really cool track. It's a really technical track, and there are a lot of events like this peppered throughout the season, so get out there.